Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving right into a chilling, true-life story straight from our source material. This is literally the genesis of modern media manipulation. We're going to look at the exact moment a highly decorated U.S. Marine major was silenced on live national television. It's a fascinating forensic audit of how information is controlled, and we're going to break the whole shebang down for you right now.
Okay, let's just jump right into this incredibly jarring moment in live television history. Picture this. It's January 22nd, 1958. The stage is CBS's Armstrong Circle Theater. You've got a decorated military intelligence officer who suddenly goes off script and triggers what our source controversially calls an algorithmic blackout. Now, in 1958, that literally just meant a producer frantically pulling a physical plug. He looks dead into the camera and says, "And now I'm going to reveal something that has never been disclosed before." But before he can even finish that thought, boom, his audio feed is physically cut. To understand exactly why this happened, we've got to rewind and look at the intense pressure cooker that led up to this unprecedented broadcast interruption.
So to understand why they pulled the plug on his microphone, our source material points out that we first need to define the enemy he was fighting. Back in his 1955 writings, Major Keyhoe accused the U.S. government of a massive cover-up, pointing directly to a faction he called the Silence Group. The documents we're analyzing describe this as a covert, bureaucratic network. They even use the term archonic control system, basically implying a hidden overarching authority that was entirely dedicated to preserving the black budget no matter the cost. And their main mission? Suppressing any empirical evidence of advanced aerial phenomena. Period.
Now, the text highlights a really stark contrast between two very different narratives. On one hand, you have the official public explanations from the Air Force. You know the drill. Weather balloons, swamp gas, seagulls, temperature inversions. But on the other hand, the sources detail Keyhoe's empirical reality. He actually had a hard mathematical telemetry showing solid objects performing Mach 10 accelerations, making impossible right-angled turns, and just effortlessly evading scrambled F-94 jet interceptors. As the authors argue, weather anomalies simply do not produce massive, solid radar returns that execute intelligent evasive maneuvers. It just doesn't add up.
Now, you might be wondering, who was this guy to challenge the mighty Pentagon? Well, our source material makes it crystal clear. Major Donald E. Keyhoe was absolutely not some fringe theorist. He was an elite, deeply connected military insider. We're talking about an active-duty Marine Corps pilot, a Naval Academy graduate, an intelligence officer, and, crucially, the trusted personal aide to aviation legend Charles Lindbergh. By 1957, he was the director of NICOP, organizing hundreds of commercial pilots and military radar operators. His elite credentials made his findings an absolute, undeniable threat to the established narrative.
Setting the Perjury Snare, trapping the deep state with hard evidence. So the crucial point here is that Keyhoe wasn't just out there complaining to the press. He was meticulously building a legal trap. The data suggests he was pushing hard for open congressional hearings. Why? So the Air Force would be forced to either finally admit the truth or commit perjury under subpoena. He weaponized specific classified documents proving the government was actively tracking machines that literally violated the known laws of terrestrial physics. His hidden arsenal included the 1952 Washington, D.C. radar logs, the highly debated 1952 Tremonton film, and this legendary, top-secret 1948 document called the Estimate of the Situation. The sources argue this perfectly highlights the sheer audacity of the cover-up. Take the events of July 2nd, 1952. We're talking high-quality 16mm color film taken in Tremonton, Utah, showing a fleet of glowing circular craft. According to the text, the Navy's own photo analysis laboratory spent a whopping 1,000 hours analyzing this film. Their conclusion? The objects were not birds, balloons, or aircraft. Yet, incredibly, the Air Force publicly dismissed them as seagulls caught in a thermal updraft. Seagulls! Keyhoe publicly demanded the unredacted release of this absolutely undeniable evidence. But the Tremonton film wasn't his only weapon. Keyhoe aggressively campaigned for the declassification of the 1948 Estimate of the Situation. The source text reveals that this document, drafted by personnel at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, officially concluded, based on hardcore forensic analysis, that these objects were extraterrestrial in origin. But Air Force Chief of Staff General Hoyt Vandenberg rejected the report and ordered all copies destroyed. Keyhoe knew this report existed, and as our source argues, he knew its very destruction was basically a screaming confession by the military command structure.
The Vanguard roster, building an unimpeachable coalition.
To make sure the system couldn't just brush his organization off as some fringe group, Keyhoe recruited literally the absolute elite of the scientific and military communities. The text highlights two major players. First up, Dr. Clyde Tombaugh, the legendary astronomer who literally discovered the planet Pluto. In 1949, Tombaugh meticulously documented a glowing cigar-shaped craft, essentially checkmating the whole weather balloon alibi. Second, we have Vice Admiral Roscoe H. Hillenkoetter, the very first director of the CIA. When the guy who discovered Pluto and the first director of the CIA team up to expose an Air Force cover-up, the system simply cannot laugh it off. Having the former head of the CIA publicly validating the cover-up was an absolute media coup. Take a look at this quote from Hillenkoetter, which was later published in a 1960 New York Times article. "It is time for the truth to be brought out in open congressional hearings. Through official secrecy and ridicule, many citizens are led to believe the unknown flying objects are nonsense." The source material makes it clear that this level of high-ranking insider validation absolutely terrified the intelligence apparatus. So think about this. We have an active-duty Marine major armed with hard radar telemetry, backed by the guy who discovered Pluto and the former head of the CIA, actively pushing for congressional subpoenas to trap the military in a perjury snare. This brings us right back to our central question. What actually happens when an expert witness traps the deep state on live television? Well, all of this empirical pressure is about to violently collide with the media firewall.
The live fire blackout, CBS's Armstrong Circle Theater.
Let's look at exactly how this played out in real time. On January 22, 1958, Keyhoe was invited to debate the phenomenon on CBS. But here's the catch. The script had been heavily censored by the Air Force prior to the broadcast. Halfway through the show, Keyhoe gets frustrated and just completely rebels against the teleprompter. He looks straight into the camera and attempts to announce a secret congressional committee investigating the secrecy. The source material describes instant bedlam in the control room as the producer physically switches his microphone off, executing a live, literal blackout on national television.
But here's the wild part. Keyhoe was completely unaware that he had been silenced, so he just kept right on talking. The text reveals the exact words he spoke into that dead microphone. He said, "For the last 6 months, we have been working with a congressional committee investigating official secrecy about UFOs. If all the evidence we have given this committee is made public in open hearings, it will absolutely prove that the UFOs are real machines under intelligent control." Wow, he was detailing the exact perjury snare they were so incredibly desperate to hide.
And there you have it. According to the forensic audit in our source material, the Arconic media literally silenced a U.S. Marine Corps major mid-sentence on live national television just to protect the black budget. He had built an organization that was so credible, so well-connected, and honestly so dangerous to the status quo that they simply couldn't afford to let him read the indictment on air. This act of blatant censorship stands as the ultimate proof of Major Keyhoe's unbelievable threat to the established power structure of the 1950s. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this final, genuinely chilling question derived from the core thesis of our source texts. If the system was willing to physically pull the plug on a decorated Marine major on live national television way back in 1958 just to stop open hearings, what empirical truths, what patents, and what realities are they cutting the feed on today? It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? We have lost the feed. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and remember, keep questioning the script you're handed.